Lagartillo, tantas veces elogió, la que defendió Sandino, Andrés Castro y Celedón, la que defendió Sandino, Andrés Castro y Celedón.
Calling themselves peace builders, 6 young Chicagoans from neighborhoods affected by violence traveled to Nicaragua in June 2015. Hosted by local community leaders, they continued their studies on how people in communities recover from violence and work together to spread the message of peace. Since 1991, Los Quinchos has rescued thousands of children living on the streets of Nicaraguan cities. Born into communities devastated by years of war, economic isolation, and extreme poverty, most have been abused, neglected, or abandoned by their families. Many sniff highly addictive glue to alleviate hunger and dull the pain of separation. At its residential facilities, including a farm in San Marcos, privately funded Los Quinchos provides care, educational support, arts and vocational programs, and psychological counseling. Former Quinchos act as intake workers, mentors, and leaders in this unique community.
It's important to understand that using glue does not affect everyone in the same way. It all depends on the person's situation. No one ends up on the streets in order to sniff glue. There's always a cause. What is it? Usually, it's the family. I want to add one thing. If you look at the effect of Nicaraguan society on children, you see that these kids' childhood has been ruined. Their own parents, their own family, their own society has destroyed their childhood. What do? We give them a childhood. We let them have the childhood they haven't had. That is the secret key of our work.
Just being here in the finca, they do so much with so little, and it has taught me to really appreciate life for the small things. They really know how to appreciate everything. You know, they have so much love to give, and I think that's something I really want to take back home and share with my community. They've built a community with nothing, and they've maintained it and made it last, and it's wonderful, and I really love that. And, you know, all the different opportunities provided for children, you know, such as hammock making. They teach them how to dance, music. You know, music is wonderful. Everyone loves music, so giving the kids something that they love and something to connect to, it really, you know, makes them want to stay here, and it makes them feel like they're at home and they can be themselves. And it's important to be yourself, you know, when building a community, and it lets children know that they are accepted for who they are.
I met Kevin when we was in the field together. I pointed to the bracelet to figure out, like, was there like any more, and he took it off his ankle and he put it on mine gladly. And I explained to him how it affected me, because where I'm from, people don't do that. Like, if you want something, you have to go out and go make it yourself or do it yourself. And I shed a few tears on that. And that bond right there won't be taken away by anybody.
If a person wants to have something that belongs to someone else, here is what we do. We give it to him. And if he wants to keep it for a long time, we just let him. We gift it to him so that he can have it, so he can take good care of it.
I didn't think they would have such an impact on me until the last day that we had to leave, and there was this one kid in particular. He really touched my heart. He was actually the only kid that I saw that wasn't playing, and he was always off by himself. And I thought that was strange, and so I kind of got close to him and I started talking to him, and I realized that he hadn't been there too long, so maybe that's why he was off by himself and not with everyone else. And before we left, I had told him that I loved him, that I really cared about him, and he started to cry. And that made me really sad.
Because of what they gave me as an ex-Quincho, Los Quinchos took me in when I was 6 years old. I now feel a right and a responsibility to work with the kids. The love I received from Los Quinchos was not something I received on the streets, but I did find it here. Now I'm giving that love to this project.
I think that the ex-Quinchos working as mentors and instructors in Los Quinchos right now is really important, because they've experienced what it's like to live that type of life. They've been in their shoes. They know what they're talking about. And the Quinchos need someone like that. I know that I wouldn't like someone to tell me, you know, this is how you should live your life if they haven't been in my situation.
Since I am an ex-Quincho, and because I was once in the same situation that many children are in right now, this is like a tool for me, because I know how to treat the kids the way I would have wanted to be treated then.
It's important to me to be a mentor for these kids, not only for these kids in other communities, but the kids in my community. The people in the Restoration Project, for them to trust me completely, where they could come up to me with their problems.
When you are bigger, what do you want to be? What do you want to do when you're done being a Quincho for your profession? I want to work here.
He wants to work here still when he's older. So he wants to stay here and help the children as well.
Eight villagers lost their lives when the peaceful farming community of El Lagartillo was attacked by US-backed Contra fighters on December 31st, 1984. As part of its rebuilding and healing process, the village built a hilltop memorial to those killed, established a Spanish-language school incorporating homestays, and founded highly regarded theater and music programs. Villagers welcome visitors to experience their simple, peaceful lifestyle and commitment to responsible, sustainable agriculture.
The way the community is now is based on that experience in 1984. So youth that haven't experienced it before, they're able to understand why they live the way they do and why it's important to be united as a community, or else they wouldn't be able to understand and connect back to their roots and kind of like their history. People like to look back at that time as a traumatic event, but at the same time as a place of hope and resilience.
El monumento aquí tiene un significado muy especial para la comunidad.
The monument behind me has a very, very special meaning for us here in the community. It honors the war victims who were killed on December 31st, 1984. After the massacre, we were all left with a lot of pain. There were economic sanctions against us, and our food was burned on the day of the massacre. We were in a serious economic crisis.
Una crisis económica fuerte y algunos.
At times, some of us felt hopeless for days. We wanted to give up, like we didn't want to go on. But then we would think about them, and we realized, no, they died defending us. And for their sake, we have to keep moving forward. So I feel like they pushed us. They were our inspiration, our motivation.
Nuestra motivación.
The younger generations have learned that from the older ones, and those who died here didn't die in vain. I suppose that's a strong inspiration for them to build a better community over the years.
In this community, the people has really grown to love and to embrace each other as if they were all relatives. It just makes the community feel more together, and it makes it feel more beloved, and this is what other communities need to have to make a better future for others and for the next generations.
They're doing something to create more peaceful communities, and it's starting with teaching their children that violence is not okay.
La paz es es amor.
Peace is love. I believe it starts with loving ourselves. It starts in the home, with our children. With not buying, this is very personal to me, not buying a violent toy for a kid. I think that is where peace starts, in our home, with our family, from inside ourselves. To say, I love myself just as I am. From there, we start making peace, anywhere in the world.
Y ahí podemos empezar a hacer la paz nosotros en cualquier parte del mundo. Especialmente vivir una vida más simple, más sencilla.
Live a simpler life, without thinking too much about material things. Live a more human life. My wish is that you take this lesson from our culture here.
Nuestra cultura aquí. Paz, paz, paz. Paz por siempre, paz. Aquí en Nicaragua.
Peace, forever peace. Here in Nicaragua and everywhere in the world.
I think it was important for me to come here to just experience something new and to learn from different cultures and just to see how, even though we are worlds apart, we are very similar in a way, and we're not that different, and we all go through the same problems no matter where we're from.
We have learned how to relate to the peace builders, people who are different from us, and they taught us about what they are doing in their community and about how important peace is for a country, for a community. We've gotten a lot out of our time with you. We hope you've learned as much from us as we've learned from you. You've shared your ideas about how to create peace in a country, and we hope to use those ideas in this country.
Entonces, es decir, si ustedes quieren, ¿verdad?, hacer un trabajo de concientización.
If you want peace, you have to work at becoming more conscious. More than anything else, you should continuously meet together, talk together about becoming more conscious and what you have to do to keep improving. You have to work at this every day and not lose progress. Because sometimes we have personal weaknesses and it feels difficult to keep fighting for justice. But no, you have to keep fighting until you manage to really create unity amongst the people you are working with.
Hasta que pueda llegar, dijo, a consolidar bien por lo menos los grupos que ustedes están trabajando.
I'm kind of going along this path, thinking that in San Marcos and here in Lagartillo, I see the same type of sense of community. It's this sense of community that has kept these people together and has kept them away from conflict and striving towards a more peaceful environment.
It's just these stories of hope and forgiveness and resilience. I think those are the most important to speak of because there's a lot of problems in our communities and we sometimes it becomes a normal part of our lives that, we forget that these things shouldn't be normal and that we should do something to fix these problems. We shouldn't just let them keep on going. A lot of people also don't believe in change, and so I think sharing the stories of Los Quinchos and the stories of this community in El Lagartillo will help people understand that peace is actually possible, and even in times of trauma and violence, that people can still come together and create the change that they want to see if they just work together and love each other, even though it might sound impossible and almost kind of cheesy. It's actually true, and I feel like we're already starting to do that in the community that I work with in Little Village.
In this community, when we get visitors who come here, we always look at it as a way of exchanging. I like very much your idea of peace exchange, because when people come here, we learn from each other, we exchange each other's experience, each other's point of view. And although we might think, oh, well, it's such a different background. I mean, it's a small rural community where everyone knows each other. We hardly close the doors, lock the doors in our house, and you live in an urban area, which is probably sometimes more hostile. And when you go out in the streets, you worry, oh, where are my kids going? And there's much traffic and so on. But we're still humans, so human nature is there. We're all trying to find ways to be happy, and definitely building peace is the way to do it, the way to go about it.
En el lago de Azur, y están tristes las flores por la flor de la corte, los jazmines de oriente, los nelumbos del norte, de occidente las dalias islas rosas del sur. Pobrecita princesa de los ojos azules, está presa en sus oros, está presa en sus tules, en la jaula de mármol del palacio real, el palacio soberbio que vigilan los guardas, que custodian 100 negros con sus 100 alabardas, un lebrel que no duerme y un dragón colosal. Oh, ¿quién fue Ipsipi la que dejó la crisálida? La princesa está triste, la princesa está pálida. Oh, visión adorada de oro, rosa y marfil, ¿quién volará a la tierra donde un príncipe existe? La princesa está pálida, la princesa está triste. Más brillante que el alba, más hermoso que abril. Calla, calla, princesa, dice la madrina. En caballo con alas hacia acá se encamina, en el cinto la espada y en la mano el azor. El feliz caballero que te adora sin verte y que llega de lejos vencedor de la muerte a encenderte los labios con su beso de amor.